Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I am Daniel Chamberlain, co-host here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
It's another fantastic week of high school football. Finally, week one of practice for Oklahoma. I know you guys have the luxury of starting earlier, which you don't like, right?
It just depends on when you're playing and what you're doing. We're not, August 1st is fine with me because we have 2 scrimmages in August and then we play our first game in August. So that's not like a ridiculously early start.
No.
We've got 2 scrimmages in a game. If we were back another week, then it would be too early, right? If we were in the traditional week 1 starting spot, I would probably think, we don't need to start until. And I think we're required to have something like 21 practices or something like that. And so that's basically what we're getting. We're getting like right at it. So at the end of the day, we're not egregiously early at all. I think we're fine.
Yeah, did you say that this year y'all could have started the 30th or 31st or something of July?
Yeah, we could have started that Monday. So whatever that was, the 29th.
Yeah, it's so strange to me that the states are so different because I get, now that I've finally admitted you're actually in the South with us, but the northern states, I get that they can, they technically could stay longer because it's cooler a little bit at least, to where like South Texas, you probably don't want those guys starting in the middle of July because they're going to kill someone.
Into the issue of, I guess it wasn't bad. Iowa got cold. I was not the coldest place in the world, but it felt like it. But I mean, they're going to play their state championships in a dome, right? They played at that time. They played at UNI, so they were okay with it. And I think even maybe the semifinals may have been too. So you don't want to go too late there because you're going to run into weather issues. But I mean, it wasn't that. November's still fine. It's not like a disaster. So yeah, I think that they can start. They're okay. What amazes me is that states like Georgia and I think even Florida start so early. It's so hot.
Yeah, which is wild because we've talked to people on here that would get 1 week of practice or some. I mean, it seems like it's time at all.
I believe it's Illinois. I know we have a lot of coaches in Illinois. They didn't get a scrimmage. It's just they get there and they go play. And it's what happens. We do have some coaches in different areas that go and they get a little bit of practice. And I know whatever everybody has, they think of as this is the way. And then, especially if you have more time and more schedule. So I hear coaches talk about, and I think you guys have something like you talk about camps, stuff like that. But I have coaches, I think Ohio and stuff, they have 20 days that they can use like during the summer,
right,
for padded practice. And I'm like, yeah, we don't put pads on until August. In this case, our first day in full pads was technically August. No, it wasn't technically. So we went Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We had to have one Saturday practice again to get that 21 days. Like, why make it 21? Or whatever it came out to. We had to get that one. We had to get one extra day. So we had one Saturday practice just to get our days in. And also that gets our 3 days in helmets out of the way. So Saturday was like a special teams practice. So then we come in Monday, Tuesday, shoulder pads. And then Wednesday of last week was our first full pad day. So, and I will say, I'll tell coaches who are in those states that have all of these dates that they can do in spring practice and stuff. Like this is Wednesday, August 7th was the very first day that we have put full pads on since the second round or first round playoff game last year. So I keep forgetting we lost that game. Yeah. So it's been since November that we had pads on.
I do forget about our spring being padded, honestly, because I don't know that I would go padded in spring if I were the head coach. Right. It just seems like a great time you don't have enough time to get them ready, and then you're throwing them out there for some crate.
Yeah.
It just seems weird. I get, it's more reps, but it's an odd time. It doesn't really add to my install time for the summer because that has to stay the same. I got to have a base level install for all the kids we add, right? And now Oklahoma has transfer portals, so you're able to pick up kids at any point.
Wow.
I guess they technically have to transfer during July, but you still pick those kids up and they've missed spring ball. Anyway, long story short, you guys have 10 or 11 extra days.
Over again, regardless, yeah.
Yeah, but we did the spring ball thing, so.
The one thing that I've always wanted, that I've always just been like, what sense does this make? And I thought this back in high school, because we were going to just kill each other on day one of spring ball. What sense does it make that in August we have to go 3 days in helmets, 2 days in shoulder pads, and then full pads, if in April we can just go 2 full weeks of full pad practice and kill each other? I just don't understand the rules. I don't understand the thought process behind it, or if there is a thought process at all. And I'm like you, I don't see the value in it. I do not, as a coach 10 years ago, 20 years, 15 years ago, when Virginia had weird out of season rules that were like, you can't use a ball, you can't have more than 21 players on a field at a time, a very strategic, 21. So you can't do a full scrimmage.
Like, right.
What? Okay. We couldn't use pads. We couldn't use a ball. So we'd be out there with like a tennis ball or something, which we were rule followers. I'm sure that there were plenty of schools who were just like, okay, whatever. Not like there's a governing body.
It, right?
Exactly. There's nobody in Virginia policing this anyway. You police yourself. The only person who can turn you in is your athletic director.
Your rival might be like driving by to catch you with a football, but
they can't do anything about it, though. They cannot report
the punishment.
Like, there's no punishment because nobody's ever been caught. Because the only person who can report it is your athletic director. So you have to have an athletic director who is actively trying to fire you.
Yeah.
In order for anything to get reported. And my guess is the person who would take the brunt of the blame for it is the athletic director. So you think he's going to go report it? No. So
how dare you lose control over your coach, right?
Yeah. So anyway,
last piece on this, with the helmets, 3 days, the acclimation period, it's so strange because now it's the 7-on-7 era. So you just wore a helmet all summer, and I need now 3 more magical days is going to make me acclimated to the heat enough to put on.
But those days are not supposed to be mandatory, and therefore now that when practice becomes mandatory, now it is required that you get those 3 days in helmets. So you get kids coming out late, that kind of stuff. So you are required that everybody get those 3 days in helmets, and it would be nice if we could give them credit for being there for 25 days in helmets or whatever. We don't wear helmets in 7-on-7. We wear the Guardian caps and that's it. But that's, again, we have weird rules and stuff. If we go to tournaments and stuff, we do, but on a weekend 7-on-7, we don't always. Well, it depends. It depends on the tournament. It depends on what we're doing. Yeah. So anyway,
let's talk your level up, Joe.
What's your level up? I finished a couple books, but I don't know how to level up. I don't have a clear-cut level up right now that pops into my mind. A couple of decent books. I've started a couple of books that I like, but they're nothing that I would really. We've installed some new we've changed some things with our install and adjusting to those new. When I say we've changed some things, a couple things that every year is a couple wrinkles. So the base offense is the base offense. We're running, power, counter, inside zone, outside zone. So we've installed kind of a new look series. And overall, I think the biggest thing is making the adjustments, that the tweaks that we've made have been simple enough that we've been able to execute them all for the most part. We've been able to get them installed because they're still learning them. It's not like easy, but the entire playbook is in. So getting those new plays in and feeling good about them, I think that would be just learning through this process. I've picked up a couple of new things, and they're things that I think we'll be able to use long term.
That's awesome. At this point in my career, and I know that I'm cheating in the world of coaching because I've got to hang out with 2 amazing coaches, in you and Kenny, and then my mentor is a 30-some-odd-year coach in Kenny Ridley, and now I've met the likes of Bill Blankenship, and I've just seen all these levels of great coaches. And so it's almost hard to even comprehend when people aren't doing things the way that all of you are. You're all doing football the same way. Very adaptable, very fluid, make things work, have multiple answers, don't install too much, but don't not have an answer. You all kind of do football the same way. And so when I run into someone who's stagnant,
and this is the way we do it because this is the way we've always done it.
We've done it this way because Dad did it that way, and his dad was a coach and did it that way, right? We can't even change a name of a play or it's just so stagnant. And it doesn't matter that it fits with today's kids or not, right? If I name something Yogi Bear, I have a picture of Yogi Bear in my head, and I know why I liked Yogi Bear. But these kids don't know who Yogi Bear is, so what does it matter to them? It's just a freaking name to them, right? So it's harder for them to just really compartmentalize things or put it in buckets or containers or whatever you want to call it. And so it's very hard for me to fathom people out there that are still just so stagnant. So I love that even you sell an offensive system. You're an OC who sells an offensive system, and you're like, watch me not run exactly my offensive system. Right?
There's a large chunk of the pistol power offense. First of all, 0 pistol. We have not run a single play out of pistol. We have no intention of running anything out of pistol right now, unless it is convenient to the play. So, and I've always said that the pistol part was, it's a quarterback alignment. It was just a cool name. At the time, pistol was the hot rage, in 2015 or 20, whatever year it was, 2014 or whatever year it was. But pistol's not important to the system. We go under center. We'll be under center. We'll be in gun. We'll be under center more than anything this year. Yeah. So that's kind of stuff is, we're not running a big chunk of the system.
Yeah.
But the system is not supposed to be run. The entire system is not supposed to be run every year.
Right. So that's awesome. I just think you guys are great for being able to do that. And stagnant. If you're not adaptable, it means you're rigid. Rigid things break. So you might as well just evolve, right? Mm-hmm. My level up is kind of 2 pieces, and I could save one, I guess, but I hope I do something else before next week to make myself a better human. One, you threw me into this crazy meeting with, what's his name, Joe? Dan
Kennedy.
Oh my God. And it wasn't even, it was
Darcy Juarez.
Yeah. Darcy's the one that I watched talk for 2 days. My wife was just like, I'm put it on YouTube or whatever it was on the Zoom, and just had it plugged into my truck while we're driving around. She's like, what do you do? But then I caught my wife like taking notes. She came home that night and hand wrote letters to all of our patients at the clinic. So immediately this thing hit both sides.
Now those of you who are members know where the thank you cards came from.
So I learned a lot more for athletic speed and movement and for all of my things that I'm trying to do online. And my wife immediately was like, oh, this fits adaptable. Many of the examples they used were like chiropractic or PT. Because the hardest thing in
chiropractic, dentistry, PT, a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of those are, they've got to be sent to you. People can't just generally walk into the PT clinic and go, hey, I need PT work.
Very different from an emergency room doctor, right? Somebody has to go to the emergency room. Like, you don't have to go and get customers.
Right.
But when you're
based, it's word of mouth. It's, hey, we got this referral. We treated them so good that they told 3 other people. And when they needed it, they said, hey, doc, what about adaptable PT?
Yeah, and so you've got to be good enough that the doc, that other doctors tell, because when I got my CPAP, where did I go? I went to the person that they just said go to.
Right.
Well, that's mostly because that's in large part because I don't know a single sleep study CPAP place to go. I don't know where to go. Nobody's ever put that out there. I'm a 44-year-old snoring man. I have known I had sleep problems for years. I'm the target. Did anybody target me? No.
Nope.
So I go to the one that the doctor says.
Yep. So it's really neat for her to get to listen, and I was listening, and I'm thinking in my head, football-wise, how do I do it? In fact, I started trying to collect emails on my website. I don't know how to do it. It's so confusing to use Wix and try to use MailChimp, and there's much behind the curtain. Okay. Well, we'll have to sit down someday, and you can run.
I know a fair bit of your personal views. MailChimp would not mesh with them.
Okay. Well, I'll get rid of them immediately.
Just FYI.
My second level up is, a lot of you know, I've been a OCS cadre for something like 5 years until basically April of this year, and I got sent back to a real unit. And so what that meant for me was, hey, I get to go do my job finally. And I did not doing that. I got put in some leadership position, which was fun, but it was still pretty small potatoes. I was helping an operations section of a unit, and I know we have a lot of military members, so they'll know what the hell I'm talking about. And the rest of you, Google it, I guess. I don't know. But I have this really neat way of I'm a computer upstairs. And so I made all this data and presented all this stuff. My commander loved it. And then through AT this year, several layers up the chain, there was somebody removed and everybody got bumped up one link. And so I ended up being a platoon sergeant. And so for this last month has been my true first month as a platoon sergeant. since like way back when I was doing it and had no idea what I was doing. So since I was leadership cadre, training people how to be leaders, I finally get to do it. And it has been amazing just putting it all to use. Working with soldiers, talking to people above me, below me, planning. I'm actually writing like the operations orders for our unit because once again, I'm a computer. So the ability to produce those things and make a quality product is something I pride myself on. But this month has been really fun for me to finally put all those lessons to use that I've been teaching new lieutenants for 5.5 years now. So
excellent.
It's been great. So my level up is realistically learned how to sell stuff and then use things that I already had in knowledge from 5 years over the last 5 years. And it's been great.
Excellent.
Let's pay the bills, man. Let's talk some football.
All right, we'll keep it short. We're just going to jump in. I'll tell you, it's just if you listen to the football coaching podcast and you're like, let's say that you're looking around your coaching staff and you're thinking, some of these other guys could use this. I don't know why they don't think like I do. Recommend the football coaching podcast to them. Forward them a link, whatever. Share it with them. Put it on the office. So that's my request is we're in season now. You're around people, guys on your staff, guys in your feeder programs, other coaches in your group, whatever it is. You got your group text. If something in the podcast or this podcast or another episode hits, share it in the group chat with your other coaches. Share the football coaching podcast and help us. We're kind of at a point where guys who listen to podcasts have found it. And now it's time to find the guys who don't listen to podcasts all the time and bring them into the fold. So share the football coaching podcast with a football coach.
Quickly mention Athletic Speed Movement. If you haven't gone to athleticspeedmovement.com at this point, we've been talking about it for 18 months now. It's time for you to get over there. I know it's in season now, and I know as coaches we struggle with change about this point, which we're about to have a very long conversation about change. There's something there for everyone, number one, because all of your kids can use it. But I think Athletic Speed Movement is a great way to move. Here we go yet again. We're going to talk depth chart tonight. Moving those kids who are not even on your depth chart and making them usable, serviceable members of your football team, whether they're a freshman. I know some schools are really big and freshmen don't even suit up on Fridays, and that's fine. Give them a chance to get better, and they'll be absolutely electric for you next year. But if you're a small school, like most people listening, those freshmen might come out and help you. If you just get signed up, run them through this stuff, take the time, get it installed, and you're going to have more kids than you probably know what to do with, honestly, because you're going to bring a lot of people to the level that you need them at athletically as football players. Now, how well you can coach them and get them into the X's and O's is on you, but we can get them there physically. athleticspeedmovement.com.
We do have a in-season program that's going to be probably by the time this is out will be available. So, and that's going to, even if you haven't done the program yet, we're going to have an in-season plan for you to get it installed.
So tonight we're talking how to fill holes in your depth chart. And I know that, I'm a football coach. I've dealt with depth charts. I've dealt with, you have 11, maybe 8, and everyone else you're just kind of there, right? It's maybe you're just moving the same 10 around when you lose one, and then you're adding one dude wherever he can come out and be serviceable. And so that's what we're going to talk about tonight is now that the season's it's not quite here. I think this comes out a week from today. So we're all doing install. Maybe you knocked out a scrimmage or you're planning one for this come out Thursday. So here in the next couple days, you've got a scrimmage to go to. But we're going to talk about
our second scrimmage. Yeah.
There you go. We'll talk about, how can we fill those holes in the depth chart? And I think question one, Joe, has to be, how do we get holes in our depth chart at this point in the season? So what are some ways that we create these holes in our depth chart?
Yeah, so a lot of what we're talking about is, things that you don't have control over. Injuries being the big one that's going to be happening all season long, as we know that there are going to be injuries, hopefully not big injuries, but we're almost certainly going to have games where we don't have our starting 11. It's kind of like a 5-man rotation in baseball, as we know 100% that those guys are not all making 35 starts or whatever. Somebody's got to be ready to come in and spot start or whatever. So you're going to have guys come in your football team and you've got your starting 11 And you can't just roll with those starting 11 and expect everything to be fine. You have to be preparing other guys to take those roles because we know that there's going to be injuries. There's going to be other issues. It may be grades. Different places have different rules about grades. So, you might get to your first 6 weeks and they can lose eligibility in some cases. In other cases, that's not the case. But parents may decide to pull them off because their grades are subpar or whatever. You may have, it's always possible that you have attitude issues and things and you lose a guy that you were kind of depending on, or kid does something. I mean, we were talking about the other day, we had a kid a few years ago that we were really depending on. We ended up being okay without him, but we were really depending on him. And basically by the 3rd week of the year, he was suspended and then ended up transferring, and, he was gone. And I think we basically got 2 games out of him, and he was gone. And so that had to be replaced. And we had to have a plan for that. And luckily we had the players that could do that. But you just cannot depend on 5 offensive linemen and sleep at night. You cannot have 1 running back or 1 quarterback and think everything is going to be okay. You cannot, have 3 defensive linemen in your 3-4 and think everything's going to be okay. So we have to have a plan because there's things that are going to happen. The other thing that will create a hole in your depth chart is we made a poor or incorrect evaluation, and that happens. In one of the books that I just finished, it was one of those things that, like, I don't know how I missed these because I read so many of these, like, personal development type of books and business books, and this seems like something that would have been in all of them, and it's the first time that I heard it, and I actually sent out an email about it recently. And it was Colin Powell's decision-making rule, which was the 40-70 rule, which was, in order to make a decision, you must have at least 40% of the information. Otherwise, you're just taking a shot in the dark. But you should make the decision with no more than 70% of the information. Because at that point, if you are still feeling around for more information, it's probably not going to matter. You know enough, and you make that decision. Well, we, in general, make that decision with, 60%, 65% of the information. A lot of coaches beat themselves up about making bad personnel decisions. Well, we have to do that because game 1 is here. Right. In the second scrimmage, we should be starting, as hopefully starting all of the guys who are going to start game 1 because they're going to get the bulk of the reps, and then getting reps for the guys who, the 6th linemen, and it's not about getting 25 guys ready on the offense or 25 guys ready on the defense. It's about getting about 18 guys ready, 15 guys ready maybe on the defense, whatever it is. But we have to put those guys in positions, and we have to make a decision. This is our starter. It doesn't serve us it doesn't help us to I don't think it helps us to sit on the fence on a kid and say, well, he's going to be, you're 1A and you're 1B. Head coaches do that all the time. You guys are going to rotate. Okay. Which one of us is going to start? And a lot of times the decision is, well, the kid who doesn't start on the other side of the ball will start on this side of the ball. So everybody gets a trophy. But at some point you have to make a decision on who the guy is, because the guy, I don't care who starts the game first play, but you better know who the guy is when the game is on the line. Yeah. Who's going to be out there. Now, again, we should make that decision with 60 or 70% of the information. What we're not going to know is, even if they've played before, even if they played last year, if they played JV, they played middle school, whatever, we are not going to know what this person, as of this time, right now, looks like on a game field until we're on a game field. We're not going to know what this looks like on Friday night against a high-level opponent until we're on a Friday night against a high-level opponent. So we don't have that information. And so what can happen is we made a wrong evaluation. And that's not a bad thing. We shouldn't feel bad about ourselves for it. It's the fact of making decisions without all the information. We just have to. This isn't a math problem, right? In a math problem, we have all the information. We have a formula. We plug everything in. You know how to do all the squigglies and everything, and you come up with a number, and there's an answer. This isn't a math problem. This is making a decision. We have our philosophy. We talk about the coaching philosophy masterclass. That helps. If you have a philosophy, it guides you in all of your decision-making processes, but it's not going to be right 100% of the time. It's just going to help you make quicker decisions because you have we need to make quick decisions. And so the other place where you end up with holes in your depth chart is we've now realized this was not the correct evaluation. This guy is not the guy we thought he was yet. Maybe we can still develop him into the guy. But as of right now, he is not the guy. He is not ready for this job, and we got to make a move.
Yep, and I think the same way, and it sounds crazy to say, but with scheme, right? You talked about having to change a player because you made a bad evaluation, but listen, we all just spent all summer watching YouTube videos and listening to podcasts and probably buying way too much stuff off of CoachTube and watching all these schemes, and we thought we had it down. And now we're going to be a 3-3 stack defense because that's the thing that we read last, and we decided that's what we can coach. But you get into that first scrimmage and you realize, I can't answer any questions in this defense. I don't know how to solve problems, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we're getting gashed inside. How do I fix that? I don't know. So maybe it's time we go back to a forefront, or, offensively, maybe your quarterback just can't read RPOs and you spent all summer planning 35 RPOs that were going to save your run game, which sounds like a great title to a book or something. But, and now you realize my quarterback can't read them and I don't have another guy. Or maybe we've got to make the change on a guy because this quarterback was here because I thought that he could read RPOs, but really I need a passing type. And so we've got to replace him altogether. So kind of the same thing, right? You've created it by committing to a scheme, and now you realize that can't be us. So we've got to get back to something a little more basic. Maybe you took a very evolved offense and you need to de-evolve it back to the basics this season, but you found out kind of late. So I think those are all, really great reasons. You talked injuries and grades.
That's almost always the answer, by the way, if it's a scheme issue, is going back to really simplifying it down.
Yeah.
Rather than changing it, it's almost always just simplifying it back down to the basics. And it's so many coaches defensively. We talked about this recently. Defensively, the biggest issue is coaches are like, we're going to do this and this, and they don't know how to coach the base. Right. Or they didn't coach the base and they skipped right past it to the blitz package and the pattern matching and all this sort of stuff. We got to go back and coach the base and get great at the base. Once you're great at the base, everything else falls into place. Yeah. But very few teams are great blitzers and bad in base, unless you're just better athletes.
Touche. Question 2 here. So why do we need to have a plan to fix these issues?
Because we don't have time. So what we mean by a plan is, as we are working through this, like you said, we made an evaluation on a kid. If we made an evaluation and we stuck this guy here and this guy here and this guy here, and we said, this is it. And then we find out that wasn't it. We have a problem. But if we said, hey, if I look at my starting 11 on offense and I said, well, this is going to be our starting 11. So, and then I went, all right, the next quarterback who's a freshman who, God forbid, he has to take a snap in a varsity game, but he's the next guy that throws the football. He's our backup quarterback. That's not good, because if you misevaluated who your quarterback is going to be, or if you have an injury, oh crap. But I've got a senior receiver who kind of understands football and is a good athlete, and he can go back there and hand it off. He can throw a hitch, and more importantly, he can just take off and run with it. And we can put together a little package for him. And now I've got a plan for, if I lose my starting quarterback, I'm going to have a better offense, because who cares if my receiver's standing out there and he's really good if my freshman quarterback can't get the ball to him? What difference does it make? He's just wasted now. So the next plan is, if I lose that kid, this is my backup quarterback. And so he's been running a little series of plays, and he knows how to run 4 plays, right? He knows 5 plays. He knows how to run an inside run play. He knows how to run an outside run play. He knows how to run an off tackle play. He knows how to run a counter. He knows how to run a play action. Yep. That's it. That's what he knows how to do. And if we need it, he can come in and do it. And so we've got that package ready. So same thing. If I know that I have two linebackers that I trust to be two inside linebackers that I trust to be in a game, and that's it. But I know that I've got 5 defensive linemen that are going to rotate. All well and good until one of those linebackers gets hurt. And I'm either putting a kid that I don't trust in, or better, I've repped one of those backup defensive linemen or one of those starting defensive linemen or whoever I feel could do it. And I've had him stand up and play a little linebacker. And he knows to follow the guard if he pulls. Yep. What else does he need to know? Nothing. Fill or follow. I've broken it. And part of your plan is, again, I have a very small package for the, don't isolate that. I have a very small playbook for the quarterback that might come in there. I have a very limited amount of things that I ask the third linebacker to do, which is if he pulls, follow. If he doesn't fill, what's his pass responsibility? He ain't got one.
No,
he ain't got one because we got to stop the run. Otherwise I'm going to have a freshman linebacker in there and he can't stop the run. Right. So I have a rotation at the safeties. I have a plan. Does a corner move into safety or what happens? What happens if a corner goes down? I have a plan for if it means that I'm going to have to adjust the scheme, because sometimes we do specialized scheme based on the guys that we anticipate starting for us. So we have some specialized scheme based on the guys that we anticipate starting. And if they're not the starter, if it doesn't pan out, I'm going to have to adjust the scheme, usually simplify it, but whatever it may be, take things out and fix that. So we've got to have a plan, because if we don't have a plan, we're going to be in trouble. And what's going to happen is we're going to be starting from square one with somebody in week 3. Right. And that's bad. Or even week 1, even if we get through 2 scrimmages and we realize this is not working. And now we're going to come out week 1 and go, all right, what do we do? We played a team years ago. The head coach is out of coaching now. Well, it was a friend of mine. And they came out week 1 against us and we're running a pistol triple option, pistol veer, pistol veer option type scheme. And, option takes time, but it didn't work for him. Didn't like it. And so I think they even lost the quarterback maybe. So that had been working, drilling the option. It's like the second guy has not gotten enough reps and whatever. But essentially they came out and they ran that pistol option, but they had a second offensive package that they were working. And so when they decided the veer, now I criticize this in this way. I think that veer option takes a lot of time. And if you want to do it, you're going to need to stick with it for 6 weeks and just let it get beat up. But that was not what they were going to do. They didn't want to go 6 weeks and just tank the season. Felt like they could get into something else, and they had it ready to go. So, if they weren't ready to tank the season on it, I think that if you're going to go something like that, you need to be planning on it. But they had a plan, and they went to that plan and ended up salvaging a decent season when it would have been 6 weeks of just disaster as the quarterback was learning how to read it and do everything, I think, just based on what I saw in week 1, week 2. So you got to have a plan for, schematically or athletically. You better be cross-training some kids, small school coaches. Big school coaches, you can have a backup ready, right? You've got enough guys that like you have a backup linebacker, but when we're in places where I got 18 kids, none of them are really safeties except for the 3 that are out there, I better have a plan for that, because a plan is not, man, I hope nobody gets hurt.
Something we haven't talked about yet is just like, what if some kid's having a bad day, right?
Yeah.
These are still high school kids. And I mean, how many times have we seen quarterbacks in the NFL get pulled because they threw their 3rd interception or something, right? You've got to have somewhere to go. Our plan this year was almost like a wildcat, what you said, Joe, right? A wide receiver comes in, smaller package, but really that cat he's more run heavy. I'm not worried about the throw. We're going to have a run system ready for him. My first year in coaching, we did a scheme change like week 4 or 5 or something, right? We went from a 4-3 defense, which I didn't know at the time was really hard to coach, and everybody had to know what was going on, and none of us did. And then we're like, we got to get into a 4-4. We got to just balance things up. We got to find a way to just stop the stinking run. And what that meant was moving our starting defensive end and defensive tackle back to linebackers, because really the guy that was breaking the system was our Mike, who absolutely would not come downhill. Even on a blitz, everything was from depth and delayed, right? And so we just got stuck like putting our biggest dudes at middle linebackers and letting them kind of run the thing in there. And so, that was our plan. Now, we didn't have that plan going in. We had to kind of formulate it on the run, and it probably wasn't the best use of our personnel. It probably is not the smartest idea to pull your starting 2 defensive linemen out of 4 and be like, hey, you guys are now the middle linebackers. That doesn't make sense, but it worked for us. But I wish we'd have had a better plan moving, into that season. Yeah. But you don't know what you don't know.
It happens a lot in coaching that we make a wrong evaluation or a wrong decision schematically. We misevaluate. I talked about misevaluating players, but what if we misevaluate coaching staff? Yeah. We got a guy we think can coach the defensive line, and it turns out that he doesn't understand the scheme, or he's going to do his own thing because he's just that guy. And so, our defensive line is falling behind, and we're a spill defense and they're not squeezing down blocks, and this ain't working. We might have to have as a coach, we don't think as a head coach, we should have a plan for that. As a coaching staff, we don't need to sit down and say, well, what if Tommy sucks at coaching the linebackers? And we just sit there and look at Tommy and go, well, here's what we're going to do, Tommy, if you turn out to suck at coaching linebackers. But as a head coach, you have guys that on your staff that can do this because they've done it before, because they've coached with you before. And then you have guys who you just brought on staff or you moved to a new position and you think they can do it, but you don't know. And that's where, what's the plan? How am I going to deal with this? How am I going to deal with, and this goes into depth chart, past the depth chart, but to, this coaching depth chart. How am I going to deal with if this young guy goes out there and is not doing the things that I want him to do? First of all, how am I going to monitor this? How am I going to evaluate this? How am I going to measure this? Am I going to look at the practice film every day? We've been talking with some of our coaches about, I ask our new members what their goals are. And in a way, and a lot of their goals are, I want us to get better. I want the kids to have fun. I want us to execute better. I want us to, whatever, something that just, there's not a real measurement of it. And so I say, listen, here's how I would measure this. And we've done this before. So if I want better execution, in my mind, I'm going to go, okay, where are we, defensively, let's say, where are we at with the ASCA? If it's a new system, then initially all that I want them to do is line up correctly, right? Especially with younger kids. And so I say, well, so why don't you do this? At the beginning, just watch the film back and watch each play and just give it a plus or a minus for the alignment. Not each player, that takes forever, but just look at it and go, looks good, plus, or something's wrong, minus. Or you can just do it on execution. Missed tackles is a big one. I go, all right, give it a plus if tackling's good on that play. Give it a minus if tackling's not good. If you have missed tackles, bad angles, whatever it is. And then you can note like what it is. You can talk to the players that are bringing the grade down, whatever it is. But just watch it once and give it a general gut feeling. Like, I think this, and I said this to several coaches, all of whom seem to like it. And I've done it before, so I like it. Because I don't have time to sit there and grade everybody. So I go gut feeling, watch it one time, plus. Gut feeling, minus, whatever it is. And then I shoot for, ultimately if we get the 90% plus plays, then we're doing pretty good. But we want to see improvement each play. So if I've got a new coach and I'm the head coach, if I got a new guy coaching the defensive line, I probably need to watch the defensive line that way for the first few weeks and just see week 1, where are we at? Week 2, or scrimmage 1, where are we at? Or practice 1, where are we at? Practice 2, where are we at? Practice, or maybe every Wednesday I'm going to look at practice film and I'm going to grade it. I'm going to start looking at scrimmage film, game film. And are we getting better? Is what he's doing working towards where we're going? If it's not, then we need to sit down and talk. Maybe we share that with him. Maybe we don't. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but we need to have an evaluation planned and not just get to week 6 and go, oh, Jesus, our defensive line sucks. I didn't see that coming.
For 5 weeks, I didn't see that
For
coming.
5 weeks, it's just been all wrong, but you didn't watch because you just assumed this guy could do it right. And you need to have a plan. What happens if the new guy that's coaching the defensive line isn't doing it right? Yeah. Am I going to have the defensive coordinator take over the defensive line, or maybe your defensive coordinator is the linebackers coach, and I'm just going to have the defensive line and the linebackers work together more, or me as the head coach is going to come in and become the assistant defensive line coach, or maybe I'm just going to set that up and say I'm the assistant defensive line coach, and then, if everything's good, I'm going to drift off and go do head coach things, or if it's not good, I'm going to have to stick there and become the guy. What's my plan for the staff? It's the exact same as planning for what I'm going to do with the players. I need to have a backup player, and if necessary, a backup scheme, or how we're going to fix the scheme. So I can look at the playbook that we're going into this season with and go, here's, I have our base plays. One of those base plays is going to work. I don't know which one, but one of them we're going to get really good at.
Yeah.
But I know that I've got 4 plays, and one of them is going to be the feature, and we're going to get great at it, and then the others are going to work around it. But I know the other things in the offense right now that are the potential break points. In other words, they're the things that, as I said, we're doing some new stuff. Well, the potential break points are the things that I don't really know how to coach. They're new. And if they work, great. And if they don't, how am I going to fix it? What are we going to run? What are we going to do? Are we going to, is this the first thing that we kill? What do we go to if it's not working? That kind of stuff. So I have a plan for that in our scheme schematically. I've got a couple guys working at running back. I've got a few guys working at quarterback. I've got several guys working at center, because that's a break point, more so than anywhere on the offensive line. If you have enough offensive linemen, then you need to start cross-training 3 or 4 of them as centers, because that's a break point. Centers get the yips, like Chuck Knobloch, like Mackie Sasser. Like all of a sudden they just can't throw from second to first base. So centers get the yip. So you have to be prepared for that. We got guys
with a youth coach this week that was like, I told my center to throw the ball back there faster, and now everything's 5 yards over the quarterback's head. Like sometimes it just happens, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, we need a sharper snap. No, you need a more accurate snap, and then we worry about making it faster. So we have those things in place. Who's the H? Who's the Y? Who's the next H? Who's the next Y? Who's the next lineman? In the years, but now I have a pretty good number of offensive linemen this year. I say that. I hope it holds. But I've had years where the next lineman, his number was in the battle box, and he wore his number and knew that his other jersey was always in the box. And if somebody got hurt on the offensive line, he needed to change quickly, because he was a Y until he wasn't.
You're giving all these offensive guards that hate pulling right now. They're going, I can be a tight end until you need me, coach. Let me be a tight end.
Yeah, no, if there's 5 others, maybe, but you better be good at. So those guys were all good at something else. Right. They were all starting on defense and playing every snap, and then they were like part-time Ys or H's or something. But they knew we're gonna pull that number out as soon as we need it. If that guy doesn't get better, then you're going to wear that number on Monday.
That's right.
Just be ready. And so, he's the guy. So the upside is that he's the guy calling the offensive lineman who got hurt and making sure that kid shows up for treatment on Saturday.
That's right. You better go get ice, son.
You need to go get ice. I will pick you up.
I'm not doing this
because I don't want to be a guard again.
I think a reason you just absolutely need to have a plan is just because it's a grueling, long season and a very physical contact sport. Injuries is one thing, getting beat up, bumps and bruises. Turf toe apparently keeps NFL guys out. I don't know how far down that can your high school guy not run the ball because of turf toe. I don't know. But it happens, right? Yeah. But also, there's also a defensive coordinator on the other side that's scheming you up. And so if someone does shut you down, we all know that it's a copycat, right? So I'm going to see that next week. And if I don't know how to stop that, and now maybe I have that plagued for 2 weeks in a row, you better have a way to fix it. And that could be a different ideology in football for a little while. Maybe you do go to more of a run-based quarterback, or maybe they're shutting the run down and you need to be able to throw it and you got to have a dude that can wing it out there. Maybe it's putting one of these tight end types out in space a little bit and let him just get the ball. Yeah, he's my playmaker. I got to get him away from all these linebackers and linemen and get him in space. I don't know. There's a lot of things going on within a football season, and every successful team I've seen evolves so much from week 1 to week 10 that it's almost not the same team sometimes. And so you can find yourself there. So you better have a plan to make sure you got the best kids on the field. Best 11, regardless of what it takes to get the, you know what I mean? The best 11 that week, regardless of what you're having to do. So last part here.
We had a whole episode about best 11, but best 11 is not a static, these are the best 11 players. It's, if your best 11 are all offensive linemen, that's not a good offense. Right. You need to have the best 11 are the best 5 offensive linemen, and you can put a 6th one at Y and a 7th one at H. And if you want to be, you can probably put 7 or 8 offensive linemen on the field, but somebody better be able to run away from the defense.
Yeah.
At some point, and preferably be able to throw it a little bit.
Perfect. Yep. Last question here, Joe, and then we'll kind of start closing things out. How do we replace these spots? We talked about all the reasons we gained these depth chart issues. How do we really go about now making that plan to replace those spots?
It's all about when it comes up, right? If it comes up in the middle of a game, do we pull the jersey out of the box? I think that if we have all of this in place, if we've been repping that quarterback in case, if we've been, one of the things that we've always done, we've always tried to keep our quarterbacks as the quarterback and not have them on defense. And it's always been a, break glass type of deal. Because our quarterbacks are usually one of our best athletes. And if they start torching our corner, break glass. But in order to do that, now if he's a great athlete, he can probably go out there and just do it. But he better know how to not blow your coverage. If you're a base cover 3 or you're a base cover 1, especially if you're base cover 1, you just go out there and you play man coverage on this guy. Thank you. You're a better athlete than everybody else out there. Play man coverage. But if that's not the case, or if you're a pattern match or something, he better know how to pattern match. You better have been working it. So, and then if you put him out there, if you're a pattern match team with hopefully a secondary coverage that is not as complicated, like a cover 3, and you now have to put somebody out there who doesn't know your pattern matching, I would call more cover 3. That's a pretty simple adjustment there, and just deal with the fact that it has weaker seams area. In the game, it's a lot of scrambling. Hopefully you have worked this stuff. And so in the game, but even in the game, we can have that second answer, and we might have a third answer, but we might get to the 4th question. And so you are going to have to eventually make some decisions on the fly without as much information as you like. And so, putting guys out there, it's being very simple. It's putting guys around them. When you have to do this, always make sure that the guys who are out there, when you've got to plug somebody in, try to have somebody next to them or near them who kind of understands what the hell's going on and can say, no, you stand here, or you go get him. You run this. There's no excuse for a guy coming in at receiver who doesn't really know what to do and the quarterback not talking to him.
Right.
First of all, don't know huddle. Get no huddle and let the quarterback say, you go run this.
Yeah.
Because like that, that's what has to happen. So it's obviously much harder for us when we got 27 kids, 25 kids, or 23 kids than having 100 and being 2-platoon. 2-platoon. I've always thought 2-platoon is what's the answer? What do we do? And I've always thought this is funny in 2-platoon is when we've always talked about this, you have to make a decision if you're 2-platoon. Either you say, in most cases, either you say we are 2-platoon come hell or high water, or we're 2-platoon unless, because chances are if somebody gets hurt on your offense, somebody over on the other side can do that job better than the next guy because you have your best 22 out there, right? So at what point are we no longer 2-platoon? Is it 1 injury? Is it 2 injuries? Is it 5 injuries? Or is it 11 injuries and we just had the backup offense in there and we don't care? What's the break glass on 2-platoon is always interesting. For us, it's what's the break glass on when the quarterback goes out there and plays defensive back. Yeah, But then, I mean, the biggest thing is if you have a plan, if you do the things that we've talked about this whole episode, if you work this stuff in practice, you just go out and do it.
Yeah.
You just go out. And then, on Monday, if you know, hey, this guy's out, then you start with that base package and then you start the natural progression again of, okay, have we mastered this base package? All right, can we add in a play action, or can we add in a little bit more? Can we add in a wrinkle, more motion, a different formation, a different look? How can we start to expand that gradually without going away from what we've gotten correct so far? Because if I have to pull in a backup offensive lineman who's been a while here and doesn't know everything, I'm going to put him next to the smartest kid on the offensive line, and we're going to run our base, a very basic package, and try not to give him too much to do. But if we know it on Monday, he's going to work the entire week in that offense. I should be able to do a little bit more. I should be able to put him in the right spot and be able to do whatever we need to do with him.
I've had the luxury last year being around some of the best football teams I've ever seen in my life. And it seemed like all of them had that crossover training period. Our quarterbacks go play safety. Our safeties come play quarterback, running back, wide receiver. We have I'm not on Owasso anymore, but Owasso has two, I guess now power 4 offensive tackles, and one of them played defensive end in multiple games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he was the next best. So that is 2 platoon, 100 kids on each side of the ball almost, and still your best dude might be on the other side of the football. So
it's foolish to think that they won't. And this is why I argue with coaches I don't argue with coaches, just that if they ask, should I move this guy to help his college recruiting? Absolutely not. You need to win football games. That's our job right now. And you're absolutely insane if you think you know where this kid's going to play in college.
Yeah.
Like, just because, like, how many times do we see, how many quarterbacks in the NFL? How many high school quarterbacks in the NFL? How many guys are, Julian Edelman? They were a quarterback even in college. They were a quarterback in high school. How many teams put their quarterback at, I don't know what he's going to be. He might be, he goes somewhere. He's a defensive lineman. He's a tight end. My quarterback became a tight end. It's like, so play him. Don't worry about him. They need to cross train. I talked about my left tackle went to college, and it was COVID year, spring COVID year deal. Went to college, first game as a freshman, starting at guard. Played left tackle the entire time for me. Worked at guard, and at halftime moved to center. Now, I always made him snap, and I'm sure that they worked him as a center. So I'm not taking, I'm sure that they had worked him as a center, but I would have never made this kid a center, but that was his deal. So, I don't know what they're going to do in college.
Yeah. I think the last piece here that I would say is just when you go to that best 11 mentality, don't ever waste reps. So how do you replace these spots? Well, in your spring ball, your summer, look, there's a period of that training that every kid gets the same amount of reps, but you need to draw the line, and where maybe it's week 1 of fall camp where you're a freshman, you are not going to play on Fridays. I am not wasting reps on you.
Yeah.
Yes, it is my job to develop you. I just developed you from last November until this August. That's all the time I spent developing you. You didn't earn that next spot for whatever reason. Stop wasting reps. And Joe, I think it was you that told me originally, and I've regurgitated it so many times. If on Friday night when your center goes down, if the next guy isn't the backup center, stop giving the backup center reps. You know what I mean? He shouldn't be snapping the ball. Right. If it's your right guard is going to switch over and snap the ball, that's who your backup reps need to go to.
And put
the people in the positions that they are going to be backing up, and stop wasting your reps elsewhere. Look, we all want to pretend that we have that. What's the new college football 25 thing? The elite development trait freshman, right? And I'm going to make this kid the kid. We had one at Owasso last year, right? He was a freshman. He got called up and started a whole bunch of games for him. We all hope we have one of those, but the odds are not in your favor. And so thinking you can just slide a freshman in at safety and he's going to be able to do all the things and come around real fast are not realistic.
I would rather have the freshman be the what if this guy doesn't work out?
Yeah.
Or what if this guy gets hurt?
Yeah.
And that way the freshman can come in. A freshman in week 6 isn't a freshman anymore. Now, again, if that's the case, that guy should be getting backup reps, right? If it's the guy who's not getting backup reps, the big thing is I'm just flummoxed by teams that don't have.
I don't know if it's real.
Small schools around us that just don't seem to care about playing a JV schedule. So other 3As who just, if I can find 15 freshmen and sophomores or 8th grade, we're allowed to play 8th graders. If I can find 15 of them, we're going to go play. I may have to walk across the field in the middle of the 3rd quarter and say, Coach, I'm out of bodies. We're going to get on the bus. Great game. But at least they got 2.5 quarters of work, because I am like, that needs to be, if you're in that situation right now, you need to go ahead and make a note and come back to it. And you need to do everything you can to get enough bodies that you can have a sub-varsity level. I don't care. We're going to lose every game. Who cares?
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Get the break speed off of you. But if you can develop 3 kids, like you said, I don't have time to rep this freshman in practice because I have to get 6 linemen ready. And that 6 linemen's got to get ready. And my 5 aren't really ready yet either. And I don't have time to give the reps to this freshman. So he's going to do all the indies. He's going to do all of the scout team. And he's going to get to play on Wednesdays or Thursdays or Mondays or whatever it is. And he's going to get that. And that's going to be, and look, what's the reality of that? And the reality of my JV program in not the current JV program, we have enough players that we can split off and run a varsity practice in the JV. We do indie together, and then they do team separate. But when we had fewer players in a smaller school and our JVs had to be there for us to have enough guys to run a practice usually, they ran our plays on Thursday night. When I went to a large high school, I ran our defense on Thursday night. And I didn't run our defense on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. I ran Lassiter 1, Lassiter 2, Lassiter 3, Lassiter 4. I didn't even know what I was doing there. I just knew where I was supposed to go. And I get out on the field and they'd be like, base cover 3. And I'm like, which one? Is it Lassiter 1? Is that base? They're like, no, that's not our defense. And I'm like, well, I've been my defense for the last week.
Right.
But so but that's the reality is, and it should be very simple for them to run. Run the basics if that's your situation. But you need to do everything in your power to have game time for these guys. I just don't know how they can develop without game, because like the whole thing that we're talking about, if I have a freshman or a sophomore who is the next guy and he's getting 0 live game reps, man, I'm in trouble. If it's a freshman and he's my backup and he's never played and he has to go into a live game and he's never played a meaningful down, that's bad. As long as he's played, freshman, JV games, he can, at least I've seen what he can do. It wasn't 10,000 screaming fans, but it was, his mom was there. She's pretty loud. So got a little bit of an idea.
I love it. Yep, that's exactly where I was going to go. Is you better be developing them. So when you talk about how to replace the spot, how do we have these plans? Coach. And you even brought up earlier.
We can't devote, especially when we're combining varsity and JV, we can't devote as much time to the JV guy. So we've got to give him a time that's for JV.
Yeah. You brought up earlier kind of the coaching depth chart and like, how do we know these guys are doing it right? And how do we get them? Same thing. Take off the headset, or maybe wear your headset, but go stand in the box, right? And let those younger coaches coach varsity and the JV. Let someone else call plays.
Yeah.
Right? Let someone else get reps at calling your stuff, because I'll tell you what, I've become very good friends with a coach around here who was, top tier programs freshman OC, and he called all the freshman games and he added things to the varsity package. They were like, oh, hey, we can do that with our same verbiage. How did we not see that? Right.
Yeah.
And then he used their stuff in freshman level and they used his stuff in varsity. So it's like letting other people kind of work outside the box, use your terminology, use your game, your schemes, and let them go to work, because you may find some special things.
Yep.
All right, man. I think we checked all the boxes for tonight. Let's pay the bills and get out of here.
Yeah, check out 40 Coach Simple Rules for coaches who want to win more football games. It's a downloadable PDF. It is absolutely free. Just put your email address in. Go to joedanielfootball.com/rules to get access to that. And it's there. It's got non-negotiables. It's got Coach Simple philosophy, drill philosophy. It's free download. Go get it.
Awesome. Social media, I am at Coach Chambo OK on Twitter. You can find me at chamberlainfootballconsulting.com. You can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. Jump over to the Patreon, see if there's a tier for you there. I like teaching. I've found out that I just really enjoy teaching other coaches things. So there's a couple levels there for them to educate you on stuff. And it's not all X's and O's, because I work for guys who make money selling you X's and O's, and they are way better at it than me. Just goofy stuff, graphics, problem solving, whatever. Joe, where can we find you at, sir?
Find me at Football Info on Twitter, although I haven't been on Twitter in a while. Might not want to find me there. At Joe Daniel Football on Instagram. Don't try to message me on Facebook, but we are on Facebook, Joe Daniel Football. If you want to watch the football coaching podcast, if you're listening and you want to watch it, or other coaches, like we said at the beginning, sharing the podcast. If guys are like, yeah, I don't do podcasts, great. You do YouTube. You can get us on YouTube, joedanielfootball.com/YouTube, to watch the podcast on YouTube. And I think we're still on TikTok at Joe Daniel Football. I check that every once in a while.
There you go. The podcast is at the FBCP on Twitter. If this is your first time listening to Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. You can find us on your favorite podcatcher, Spotify and Apple Podcasts are the big two. You've been listening for a while. Please leave us a review on one of those. We like 5 stars. If it ain't that, maybe reach out to us. Let us know why we don't get that 5th star. I mean, we'll take a 4. 3 and below, holler at us. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. Remember, coach simple, play fast, win.